Have you ever wondered what your life would be like if you had a second chance? Are you willing to take a gamble, open your heart, and change your thoughts and perspective for a new chance at life? Welcome to the Wisdom Cafe. I'm your host, Arthur Tassinello, a relationship and leadership coach and mentor. Join me each week for insights into how you can have more love, happiness, peace, and abundance in your life without giving up who you are. Know that you are powerful and you are the governor of your life. So listen, learn, and leap into a better future. Hi, I'm Arthur Tassinello, your host for the Wisdom Cafe, and welcome to all of you. I have to ask you a question to start with. What if you could trade living on autopilot for living a life of peace, love, and happiness on purpose? What would that be like for you? So to start the show today, this is going to be two segments. The first segment, we're going to talk a lot about your Key to Love and Happiness, the workbook. And gracefully and graciously, Dawn and Freddie have decided to join me to help ask some kind of deep questions. And why would this book help you? What would it do for your life? So there's a lot of deepness to this. There's a lot of questions to answer so you can get a better sense of who you are and what your life is going to be like, or what it can be like. Sometimes we just don't realize who we are deeply. We know things happen to us in our life. We know that we have some traumas in our life. Earlier in another show, we were talking about how things happen, but they really don't always happen to us because they happen on purpose, possibly, for you. Something that maybe you need to grow into. So this is a program for self-healing and personal growth. I have another book, one of my first books, called Quantum Shift into Greatness, and it asks you right on the cover, and it tells you what lies behind you and what lies in front of you is nothing, absolutely nothing compared to what lies inside of you. So what will you do with what you have in here? We're all individuals. We all had our issues growing up, whatever they may be, some worse than others, some more traumatic than others. But here's an opportunity for you, if you decide to choose to do that, to work through these things so you can have a much, much better, more fulfilled life. I'm going to start with, I always like to start with love because basically that's where we all originated, right? We came from love. But how did we get from a place of being love and knowing what love is to a place of not being so loving or not being loved the way we thought we should be loved or could be loved? Should is that's a little sticky word for me. I don't like to tell anybody what they should do because that just doesn't help anything. It doesn't mean anything except that I'm kind of looking at them like, how come you don't do the things the right way? And everybody has a right way to do things. My right and your right could be two different things. So, Dawn and Freddie, you've kind of read through the book. What are some of the questions that you would have about just being a more loving person, or how to be a more loving person? What is that like?
One of your chapters talks about integrity.
Mm-hmm.
Why is that so important to you in this book?
Well, gosh, I guess if we don't have integrity, we really don't have much, do we? I mean, people rely on us. They want to trust us. If we don't have integrity, there is no trust. And if you don't trust me, or if I don't trust you, we're going to be at odds all the time. Integrity is that part where if I'm a leader in a company, I want to be good to those people. Good in the sense of I want to teach them more about the business. I want them to be successful in the business. If they're successful, I'm successful. When I've always led an organization, it's always been about, I want you to be successful. I actually want you to take my job. Because if you're so good at doing that, one, maybe you deserve to take my job. And number two, that just elevates me because the organization is running well. So for me, my integrity is doing things that help others. That's my integrity.
And this book isn't just about loving somebody else. This is truly a deep dive into loving yourself. And I think that's the importance of this workbook, which is why, Freddie, I'm going to give you the mic. You talk so much about giving this to every college student.
I wanted to get back to the first question that you put together.
Integrity.
Integrity, because how do you separate jealousy from integrity? How do you separate somebody trying to outmaneuver somebody else for all the wrong reasons as opposed to the right reasons?
Great question. I'm not sure if I can answer that correctly or the right way. Jealousy is an emotion. It means that you're in a way, you're envious of somebody else, you're jealous of somebody else because they have something that you want. Or they're being in a way, or they're being rewarded for things that you want to be rewarded for, however you want to place that. The thing about that is that how do you stop being jealous of someone else? And the only way I know is to, one, love yourself, figure out how to love yourself. And the other thing about it is, why not love everybody else so that they can have what's good for them? See, we all deserve love and happiness. We all deserve that. So why would you want to take that away from somebody else? Why would you want to be envious or jealous of somebody having that? That just means that you think that their having that means that you can't. And this is where you really need to work on yourself, because we all can be happy and prosperous and loving and caring and compassionate and empathetic. We can all have those virtues.
Now, you're going to be doing a little bit more of this question that I'm going to ask you on your next episode, but don't you have to learn yourself before you can love yourself?
I'm not sure I understood that question. I have to learn myself, or
Don't you have to learn who you are so you can learn the depths of loving yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. I shared this on the show with you a little bit, and I think the personal experiences are the best way to show people what we're talking about in the book and why I'm so passionate about this. So growing up, I had a loving mother. She coddled me. She was really great. My dad was missing most of the time because, God bless him, he worked a lot. 2 jobs, and then finally he had his own business. But during that time, here I had a dad that was missing in action, basically. So I didn't get to go to the ball games, and he didn't take me out to play ball or do any of those things, or football, or whatever that might be. Didn't encourage me to do any of those things either. What I learned from him was how to work hard. And that's not such a bad thing, but all the other stuff was missing. So I grew up with a little bit of a chip on my shoulder. And I used to get in fights in school because of these things. And when I got married and I had a son, I was kind of like the same way until I started to understand that I don't want to be the same as my dad. I don't want to do what my dad did to me to my son, although I did it to some degree. So it took me looking deep into myself. Same thing with all my relationships. I had to look at what is my part in any dysfunction that I'm having in a relationship. And that means my personal relationships with my family, right? My kids, my significant other, my boss, my peers at work. It all resonates there because everything is a relationship. The better your relationship with anyone, the more successful and the more happy you will be.
You know, if you're having overall bad relationships, and I don't just mean romantic relationships, even your relationship with your friends, your colleagues,
Right.
at some point we have to stop saying it's all of them. At some point, we have to take responsibility that if it's all tanking, we have to have some onus in this.
And a lot of people don't want to do that, unfortunately. And again, when you get into the book, there's a lot of deep questions in here that will ask you, how important is it for you to have better relationships? And again, as you said, Dawn, it's not the other person. You're always a factor in it. Whatever the relationship is, good or bad, you're a factor in that relationship. Right? You're half or 25% or 75%, whatever the percentage is, doesn't matter. You're a part of it. So how can you fix that? We were talking about communications earlier. And so how do you communicate that? I think I'm getting a little bit off of your exact question, but until we want to do something about ourselves, until we want better relationships and look deeply to how and why we react in certain ways, you can't fix it. Until you understand yourself, until you really want to do something about it yourself, then things change. I changed because I wanted to change, because it was important for me to change, because I knew that if I didn't do something about me, those other relationships aren't going to change.
Well, Arthur, then it comes down to the nitty-gritty, the question.
Mm-hmm.
Normally, you go through life and you don't do a change until something jumps at you and something puts you in a corner, or somebody dies. Something is missing from your everyday of what you've been doing.
Right.
And we don't look at it right, wrong, or indifferent until something is taken away. The lesson of your book, from what I can understand, read it just asks me not to wait till something happens, but to analyze who I am, answer the questions, come up with a solution so I can be a better me without something tragic happening to force me to be there. Is this true?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. I mean, it's just like the person that goes out and drinks and then gets a DUI or kills somebody. Then all of a sudden they're ready to change. You don't want to get to that point in your life. A lot of people do, unfortunately, and some things aren't as dramatic. Thank God for that. But we don't want the physical harm. There's plenty of mental harm out there that we do. One of the worst things that we can do is to use our words incorrectly, to use words that hurt people. There's a saying that goes, your words cut deeper than any knife and will leave a scar forever. I still remember words of people in the past that I had to either forgive or maybe forgive and let go. We never forget anything, Freddie. We don't forget anything, and especially we don't forget those bad things that happened to us, those words that were spoken to us that really hurt us. I still remember this one guy that I worked with, and I became good friends with him. And I still love this guy to this day. But I still remember that one day when he said something to me that really hurt, and that sticks in me. But I have to let it go because I still care about him, and I still love him, and I still want him to be happy and to have a good life. You're being happy. Dawn's being happy. Anyone's being happy doesn't take away from me. In fact, if you're happy, it should add to my happiness because you're going to go around with a smile and you're going to give goodness to other people. See, when you learn this is why this is so important. This is why I'm so passionate about this. Folks, I haven't done this my whole life. I have not done this my whole life. I've learned from so many experiences. I've learned from other masters and gurus. I've done studies of different religions. I've read so many other books because I am so passionate about wanting this world to be at peace. We are so dysfunctional today. The news just divides us like crazy. It puts us in fear. It puts us at odds with one another. And we're all the same. I guarantee you 100%, God knows this, we are all the same. He created us all equal. And we have divided ourselves because of envy, because of jealousy, because we don't want to be empathetic. We don't want to be compassionate with somebody else. We don't want to care enough about somebody else. We want to care about ourselves. And that's, you can care about yourself. But if you don't care about anybody else, you see what's happening in the world. You cannot create peace by creating war. That's bottom line. And we do this all the time. We have heads of our government that just throw us under the bus.
So take me through the processes of the book. Take me through the thinking of how the pages, how the words, the questions, how does it make me a better person to go down this road?
Well, you'd start to discover yourself. So I'll give you some questions from the book. And you folks out there can answer them for yourselves. And Freddie, you can answer it. I'm not looking for an answer, but this is the way it works. So what parts about yourself that you find unlovable? Answer that, right? What are your personal ideas about what love is? What are the parts about yourself that you can love easily and maybe you don't love so easy? You know, this could be like shaming ourselves for, I'm short, I'd rather be tall. I'm heavy, I'd rather be thin. All of these things, shaming ourselves for these things. What level of devotion to yourself versus your personal addiction? So you want to be devoted to your addiction, or you want to be devoted to something better in your life? But these are just a tiny fragment of the questions in here because,
But what
again,
about the denial? You know, that
Yeah.
DUI, I won't do it again. That I won't hit my wife again.
right?
I won't yell at my kids again. The I'm sorry, I won't do it again until you do it again. Can this book help you find that inner sense
Well,
and to become that better
that's why it was
person?
created, and I hope that is true. Obviously, we can continue to deny everything we want forever if that's what we want to do, because we want to keep going down that same road. Well, I need to go out and have a couple of drinks tonight and I'll be fine, you know, I can manage the car until you have the one too many, until there's an accident. I believe that because you're doing this for yourself.
Now, this is a workbook. I want people to
Right.
realize. It's
Right,
not
this-
just to read and go.
Right, this is a workbook. I think the benefit of this is that you don't have to tell it to anybody else. If you can't, let's put it this way, if you can't be honest with yourself, then you're really in trouble.
Then you know what the problem is.
Right. That's one of the problems. You can't be honest with yourself. So you don't have to share this with anybody else. You don't have to talk to anybody else about it. I'm not here as a therapist asking you these questions and putting you on the spot. And then when I'm asking you the questions as a therapist, you're trying to think, well, should I end this on? Should I be honest about this, or should I shade it a little bit because I don't want to look that bad? If you can't look bad in front of yourself and honestly answer these questions, yeah, you have another problem. That's another issue. But again, I'm not a therapist, even though this book was created with the help of Maureen Ake, who is a therapist. This is a lot of my life poured into this because of what I've been through. And I haven't been through maybe half of the things that some other people have been through, the trauma that some other people have been through. But I know that I didn't want my life to go off the rails anymore. I just knew that I needed to be the peacemaker. And I'm not perfect. I'm still not perfect at this, folks. I'm still not perfect at it. I still have feelings and I still have thoughts and crazy things sometimes, but I'll give you this one thing, this one nugget, if you can do this for yourself. One thing. When that button is pushed, when you have that little thing that's been residing in you forever that somebody says to you and you kind of blow up, I want you to just stop for a minute before you react. Just don't react. Just stop, think about why that hurt you, what that brought up for you, how that resonated for you, and take a deep breath and try to answer that in kindness or ask another question as to why they said that to you. Because what you don't want to do is, it's like somebody slaps you on the face and the next thing you're going to do is you're going to slap them back. Don't do that. It's hard. sometimes. It's hard until you learn that. I get triggered sometimes by things that happen, whether it's a family member or somebody else. I'm learning all the time. I'm learning more all the time because that's important to me. So if that's important to you, do something about it. Nobody's going to give it to you, although I am giving it to you. I'm giving it to you here, that you can do this and hopefully you come out into a better place.
Well, the book, I just want people to know the book is made to help, not to hurt.
Yes.
And being honest with yourself doesn't, its intent is not for you to even hurt yourself or come down on yourself.
Correct.
You know, when I went through the book, what amazed me was that I found myself trying to answer people's questions to what they wanted to hear. And it did not allow me to say the things that I should have said, or because you have to deliver things appropriately. You know, everybody has, in every cloud there's a silver lining, and everybody has a silver lining. And so some people may do or say things incorrectly because they don't know any better, not because they're bad people.
Right.
And in my business, I have to sort of lay back and let them be them and then listen from there. So the book to me showed me some of my weaknesses, things that I have to work on. But there was a lot of good that came out after I did the book. I was really happy with myself. I was really the type of person that could say, you know something? I mean, I've been divorced twice. That's twice. A lot of years, over 20 years of marriage and divorced twice. I got 2 beautiful kids and everything else. But I made mistakes, man. You know, and I'm willing to say I made mistakes. You know, it wasn't all her. Right. There was a lot of me, a lot of things that I should have done differently. So
Well,
that's what I like about the book.
I'm going to stop with the shoulds, and you could have done differently.
Could have done it.
Right? I can give you example after example because I'm the way I am. I'm an anal person about things. I'm very compulsive about making things right and smoothing things out and having things in the right places and all of this stuff. It's a funny story. So at this one job that I had, they knew me to be that, and every once in a while I'd come in and they would just move everything on my desk just to see my reaction. So it gets something. You have to have fun with this sometimes. But you're right. You'll have questions in here that will ask you, well, where did you learn that from? Who taught you that? When you start to get to the root of where this came from, that can help you understand why you're doing things the way you do. And when you find out the root of that, how did you feel about that? Did that resonate with you well? Did you not like what was happening? Were you sort of okay with it? Were you okay with it? And you think that's still okay today, even though it's not the right thing to do. But I'll keep repeating, and you said, you have to be honest with yourself. Honesty is the only way to get through this, to figure out, can I be a better person? If you can wake up every morning and just say, you know, I want to be a little bit better version of me than I was yesterday. I want to do just a little bit better job. This is not instant fix. There is no instant fix. There's always going to be something in your life. Life is something to be experienced, but hopefully to be experienced in a good way, and not to create any more trauma or any more problems for yourself or anybody else. We were talking, Dawn, right, about hate versus love and so forth, and we use hate a lot. I hate this, I hate that, I hate this group, whatever it is. And we don't use love enough, although we do use love a lot in the wrong way, right? Because, oh my gosh, I just love that art on my wall. That's just beautiful. And I love the new car that I got, except for 6 months from now. I'm not going to love that car so much anymore, and I want a new car. And I really love those shoes, man, they're beautiful. I need another 3 pairs of that shoe. And when I have 50 pairs of shoes, maybe I'll be happy. But there's nothing that's going to make you happy, nothing outside of you that's going to make you happy. We often look for a partner and we say, she or he will make me happy. But unless you're happy within yourself, they're not going to make you any happier. Right? They can add to your happiness if they're a good person and you're getting along and things are going well for you and you understand each other and you communicate well. But unless you're happy within here, that other person outside of you isn't going to make you happier. So it's about finding your happiness. Right now, I just want to say to you, both of you, I am so grateful for you. I can't tell you, I really can't tell you how full my heart is right now that I get the opportunity to do this. And to show other people that you can be amazingly great and amazingly wonderful and amazingly happy. And you can give love to everybody. It doesn't hurt. In fact, it feels good when you give love to other people. So thank you so much for allowing me this time and this opportunity. Thank you.
We thank you. And I actually put a post on social media yesterday, and if you go to the cafe and you read it, talks about an Uber driver, a taxi driver. He goes and he picks up an older woman. She doesn't come out, so he rings the doorbell, and she's about 90-something. She gets in the car, and she says, take me, gives him address. But I want you to go the long way. And he said, but that's not the fastest way. She goes, that's okay. Everyone in my life has passed away. And the doctor has given me a small amount of time, and I'm going to hospice. So I want to show you my life. And she takes him to where she went to dance class and where she met her husband and where she worked and where she had fun and where she went out at night. And she said, okay, now take me. And they were all waiting for her. And at the end of the story, it says, and what do I owe you? And he says, absolutely nothing. Because sometimes, and I'm thinking of that as I'm reading your sign, it's not about the money that we bring in. It's about the love and the kindness that we can give to others to make an impact in their life. And that's what your book has shown us. And I think what our crew gets to see every day, and sharing just a little bit of compassion and love for each other and coming together without judgment. If anyone steps into the studio, you'll see this is a judgment-free studio. And taking that first step. And people are journaling a lot, and no one knows where to start. This book is the perfect place to start journaling because you have guided questions. And I think the hardest part for people is, what do I write about? Do I write about breakfast? Do I write about dinner? You don't know where to start. But if you get this book, your book to Love and Happiness, it gives you those guided questions to start the process of finding yourself and then take it from there. That's what I like a lot about it as well.
Thank you.
Before you go to commercial, where do people get your book?
So you can get it on Amazon. It's the easy way. You can get it by title, or you can get it by just putting in my name, Arthur Tassinello, and I think the book is this way or this way. I'm not sure when it's straight, but it doesn't matter because it's the heart, right? Your key to love and happiness. And you can get, I have 3 books. Look, this is my last one so far. I think there'll be more. I love this book because it can do so much for all of us. Absolutely all of us. I'll kind of leave you with this. So most people will tell you that, I'm going to say that I believe we can create peace in the world. I truly believe that. But I have to take that on. I have to do this. And I hope that everybody else will. The fact is that the 4 of us here, now Lynn's here on the other side, he'll be here with me in a minute, and Don or Freddie over there, which you don't see. So if the 4 of us met 4 other people tomorrow, and the 8 of us then go out and meet 8 other people, that's 16, and the following day 32, and then 64, 128, 256, 512, 1024, 2048, and so forth, right? That's how fast it multiplies, but the 4 of us have to do this every day, and then the next 4 have to do it every day, and the next 8 have to do it every day. So if we all do that for 33 days, okay, folks, ready for this? 33 days. How many people will we have reached? More than all the people in the world, over 8 billion. Wow. Now, for you math nuts out there, you do the math. Come back and give me the number, but it's 8 billion, like 300 and some million. So it's everybody. Wow. So when you say it's not possible, stop the thinking of that it's not possible, that it is possible. And it is, and maybe improbable, right? Because there's so many of us. But stop the Stop that my religion's better. Stop that my race is better. Stop that my height is better than yours, or whatever, how I look is better than yours, or my school or my city or state or country. We're all in this together. Take a look at this, what we're on. We're all on this same ship, and we're sinking the ship. Start bailing out the water.
Plug it up.
Yeah, so thank you so much again. Thank you. I'm honored to be here, and I'm so appreciative. Thank you.
Our pleasure. All right. We'll go to commercial break. When we come back, you're going to be with Lynn.
Lynn, yeah.
All right.
Have you ever wondered what your life would be like if you had a second chance? Are you willing to take a gamble and change your thoughts and perspective? Welcome to the Wisdom Cafe. I'm your host, Arthur Tassinello, a relationship and leadership coach and mentor. Join me each Wednesday at 3 p.m. to explore what it is to be human and create that second chance.
You've been watching The Wisdom Cafe with Arthur Tassinello. For more information, please contact the studio at 888-994-4995 or send an email to arthur@arthurtassinello.com. And now, back to the show.
Oh, are we back? Thanks for coming back. Again, thank you to Dawn and Freddie and the Brooklyn Cafe. They're amazing people. Watch their show. Don't forget to watch their show. They have a couple every day. They have some amazing guests on, and they have a lot of fun, and you get a lot of information, a lot of great knowledge from them. Right now, in the house, are we ready?
We're ready.
Lynn Everard. Thanks for coming, Lynn. I really appreciate you being here again. Last week we ended with talking about your why. And as Simon Sinek says, find your why. But Lynn says there's 9 whys.
Right. The Gary Sanchez, who actually worked with the Simon Sinek for about 8 months, learned a lot from him, but one of the main questions he had for Simon was, what are the whys? Simon never defined them. So Gary Sanchez, a dentist, decided he was going to actually define them.
So that's really interesting. A dentist defining, I shouldn't say it that way because it seems so, well, it doesn't sound good, right? Because,
right,
but
right.
You think that, well, he's a dentist, he studies dentistry, he's he's a doctor and studying medical. How is it that he came up with these whys, and why do they work? Why?
Well, so there are over 100,000 people that have gone through their why discovery now. Mm-hmm. And the organization's been around for about 10 years. And he originally started it out of a personal interest, but he was also looking for a way to compete with the other dental practices in his area. Mm-hmm. And, he really started to understand that it was about people. And it was
right.
about connecting with people. And then he started putting 2 and 2 together, and he developed the 9 whys. And then he put an organization together, and then he saw the impact he was making on the world.
This is interesting because the first thing that came up for me when you were talking about that and saying that, he was interested in the people coming into his practice. So there was the first why, is like, why are they coming to me?
Yeah. Well, or why aren't they? Or why aren't they anymore,
me,
right?
Yeah.
So, because so it was actually a really bold move on his part, mm-hmm. right? It's something he had been very interested in. He took 8 months out of his life to spend time with Simon Sinek, right. to be able to really understand what Simon was all about, mm-hmm. what the whole thing was about. And then he said, well, Simon never asked the question, what's your why? He just said, to find your why. Well, how do you find something if you don't know what it is?
Yeah, so did Simon, I never really got into Simon's books or anything. Mm-hmm. So I don't know how Simon defined finding your why or how to get to your why.
He just says you need to do it. So where it came from was,
right.
as a businessman, he got invited to a lot of networking events and dinners and things like that. And, you know, what's the first thing people would do when you walk up to somebody that you don't know?
Yeah, what do you
right?
do?
What do you do?
Right.
And he found himself getting really bored with the answer to that question. And he got to the point where he stopped caring what people did. He wanted to know why they did it. Which, is, when you think
Sure.
about it, is a much more interesting question.
Absolutely. In fact, it kind of turns me off. I don't really like so much to go to networking things anymore just because of that. Because the first thing, nobody asks you, hey, how was your day? What'd you do today? Was anything special? You know, anything going on in your life that we should know about? The first thing is, what do you do? And I'm going, well, what do I do? If you knew my life, I'd do about 1 million things.
Right.
But what am I doing right now? Maybe that's another question. This also, I want to feed this into, because this is a love show, and right,
Right.
and finding, not just finding your why, because this is part of it, right? Finding your why in here, why we do things, why we don't do things, and what do we do with them. But does the why fit into love somehow?
Absolutely.
How does
So
that fit?
if you're familiar with a book called The 5 Love Languages,
Sure.
okay, and but that is not exhaustive of love languages.
Okay.
And I've been working with the whole why thing now. I'm a certified professional coach for about 1.5 years. And what I've realized is that as I get to know people, that I start to see their why. I see my why as a love language, as another way, because your why is who you are, and it's the best you have to offer to people. And when you can offer that and bring that into conversation, into your life, and you know, one of the whys, the Gary Sanchez's why is better way, because he's always looking for a better way to do something and to share it.
Right.
Right? Well, if you didn't understand what that was about and you were closely connected to him, you would think that anything you did was somehow magically wrong or wasn't good enough.
Interesting.
But when you understand that someone with a why of better way cares so much about people that they don't want to see people struggle with things that are broken or inefficient, or take up so much of their
okay.
energy that they can't actually have room to love people.
So, in essence, your why is your love.
Yes, I've defined it that way
Yeah.
in many ways.
Right.
Yes.
Right. So when you find your why, what you're doing with your why is your love, and so you're giving love, not just to others. You're providing a loving solution for others
Right.
with whatever you're doing,
Yep.
and that's caring, right? And that's compassion, and it's more. So it's interesting the way the why kind of fits in with love and what you do.
Yes, because it is who you are.
Yeah.
It's how you do things. It's how you make decisions. It's how you operate in the world. It's how you think.
Right.
It's how you connect.
Right.
You know, people struggle with this idea of being seen, heard, and understood. All right? Because as human beings, we all desire that. We don't just desire it, we crave it. It's part of what makes us feel alive when we experience that.
Sure.
But if we don't know our why, or the persons that we're talking to, their why, that means that if we're talking from our why and their why is different, we're going to be talking in our language, but not necessarily their language.
So now this brings us back to communication,
Right,
right?
right.
So we can't communicate properly with somebody that doesn't understand our why, or we don't understand theirs.
Exactly.
This is amazing. I like where this is
Yeah.
going.
So when you understand that a person's why is also what's really important to them, and then you say, wow, I never realized that about you before. Well, now instead of talking past you, I'm going to talk to you. and I'm going to talk to you in a way that you will become interested because I'm hitting that sweet spot.
Got it.
Right? In baseball, you know, the idea that in a
sweet
baseball,
spot,
there's
sure.
a sweet spot
Right.
somewhere, or the sweet spot on the bat, and you want to make contact and
Exactly.
you'll have a good result, right?
Right.
Well, it's the same thing with this. It's about hitting that sweet spot. It's about really getting to know that person and letting them know you.
So I know that you were generous enough to send me the questionnaire, and you gave me the feedback on my whys,
Right.
which I really already knew. Not
Yeah,
knowing it,
I knew what yours was too.
without really knowing it.
I play a game with it now, right? Before
Right.
I do this with someone, I guess to see if I can
Right.
know what their why is, and I'm usually pretty good with it, especially when someone has the same why that I do.
Yeah, and especially if you know somebody, so
Yes.
to kind of guess their why without really knowing them
Right.
is kind of foolish.
But I think so. Let's talk about your why, your how, and your what, because you know, as I looked at this, I said, you know, the show Wisdom Cafe, and how perfect is this? So your why is contribute, which means you want to make an impact on the world. You want to make a difference in people's lives. You want to make the world a better place. Okay,
Right.
that's you all over the place. All
Yes,
right.
Yes, it is.
Right. So then
And
you're
I'm grateful for that.
Yes,
I
and
really am.
so your how is mastery. Well, and so mastery means you want to learn as much as you can about as many different topics as you can, and you will go really deep. Now, one of the thoughts I had earlier today about this was that within the how of mastery or the why of mastery, it's not just research, but it's also our experience that is adding to the picture. And so, as someone who is really digging deep into things, you're extracting wisdom. You're extracting wisdom from your life. You're extracting wisdom from the sources, from all those books you've read, all the different things that you've done, the experiences you've had. Okay, and now it's perfect because we get to the place of your what. What is the result of what you do? And that's to simplify.
Right.
And that's a nugget of wisdom.
So through that, I want to say to our audience, one is read as much as you can. I've noticed that I could be reading a book, and all of a sudden the passage I read in that book connects me with the passage I read in another book, and all of a sudden I got it. Because I didn't maybe get it just here, but when I picked up this one and I read that there and I went, oh my goodness, now I understand. Because you just don't know what you don't know.
Right.
Sometimes and that's a cliche, but the fact of the matter is that the more you read, the more knowledge you have, the better the decisions you can make, the better you can understand yourself, the better you will do in the world and in your life, and the better you will connect and communicate with other people.
Right. It's kind of like the Christmas lights where when one light is out, they're all out.
That's right.
Right? And then you got to figure out, like, sometimes you have to figure out which one is really the problem.
Right.
Because it may not just be the one that's out.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah,
So it's
exactly.
going into the depth of being able to research it from your experience and from the book learning and other types of
Yeah.
research you do.
There is so much to this. After the 9 questions, and you tell that person what you've discovered about what their why is,
Right.
not everybody's going to understand that, are they?
No, and that's why we spend time with them to be able to help them understand because everything, even the gifts that we have, right? There's always a potential downside, right?
Sure.
We can be really good at something, but then there's a weakness that we could exploit or could be exploited. And so yes, it's important to know not just the the upside, but important to know the potential
Can you
downside.
give me an example of that in some way?
Yes, and I'll give you an example from my own life.
Okay.
Because like you, I'm a Y of contribute. And I've been dealing with, I'm rephrasing this now. So I'm starting to prioritize my health, really probably for the first time in my life. And what's behind it is this sense of overwhelm, of trying to do too many things. And so I'm working with a coach now, and one of my assignments is to create a list of like 3 things, and that's what I get to do. And everything else, not that I can't do anything else, but these 3 things will become the priority for me.
So these 3 things, are they about your business or your health or combination of things?
It's really more about business, but also where I want to put my energy.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
So do you think you can put your energy, as a Y, can you put your energy into your health and into what you want to do, or into your...
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Okay.
But what I realized was that I was struggling with this idea that if there was an opportunity for me to use my gifts, but I didn't use them, I had this belief that I'd be misusing them.
Well, that's interesting. So you went the other way altogether. So you went
Right,
180 degrees
because,
on this.
yes, because then I started feeling guilty. Oh, I could have helped that person, and I didn't.
Ah, okay.
Right?
Right.
Even though I knew I needed to manage my energy and my time better.
Sure.
Right? So it was only in getting back to, and even there have been some things I've been developing, and I did an exercise yesterday that this coach I'm working with had given me, and I realized that the story of my life is really all about love. And
Isn't that interesting?
it's somebody, excuse me, it's as someone who spent most of my life believing I was unlovable, and then I worked through that by getting to know myself, and then getting to experience love being reflected back to me. And then I got this idea that, well, I could really help people in these other ways. And it's not that I can't, but I know who I am is love. And it's where I feel the most joy, the most satisfaction. And so even though I'm writing other books, I'm going to be taking some time to spend more time doing something I really love doing, which is writing poetry.
Commercial break. Thank you, Lynn. I think we have a little commercial break coming, and we'll get back to this. And as we're about to get there, I want you to think about this. Don't think that your problem is permanent. Don't let the problem become pervasive. And don't believe that the problem is personal. We'll talk about that in a little bit when we come back as well. Thank you for joining
Have you
me.
ever wondered what your life would be like if you had a second chance? Are you willing to take a gamble and change your thoughts and perspective? Welcome to the Wisdom Cafe. I'm your host, Arthur Tassinello, a relationship and leadership coach and mentor. Join me each Wednesday at 3 p.m. to explore what it is to be human and create that second chance.
You've been watching The Wisdom Cafe with Arthur Tassinello. For more information, please contact the studio at 888-994-4995 or send an email to arthur@arthurtassinello.com. And now, back to the show.
Welcome back to the show. We'll get to Lynn in a minute, but you know, in the commercial, and as we come back, it all talks about second chances. So if you don't know me and if you haven't been to my first show, and over these shows, I'm going to share this with every show, I had a second chance in life. And I am so grateful for that second chance. Not everybody gets to have that. At 21, I got married. At 23, I had a son. I go through this second chance pretty quickly because I don't want to bore you too much. But the fact of the matter is that when I got divorced, my son was only 4 years old and I was a part-time dad. And then when he was 14, I moved 3,000 miles away, so which made it even more of a part-time dad. And it wasn't easy for him more than anything. When I realized it was hard for my son, I spoke to God one day and I asked him, I said, if I ever had a second chance at doing this, I want you to know I'd be a better dad. So I wasn't married, nor was I about to have any kids at that point in time, because I was already in my 40s. But so as it happens, God said, okay, Arthur, I got your back. And I met someone, we got married, and 14 months later I had a daughter. So that is my second chance, because I got a chance that many people don't get at doing life over again, in a sense. My son and I, just so you know, have patched up our differences, and he has forgiven me. But the chance to have done it a second time, to be a father a second time, after understanding all the things that I did wrong to begin with, I am so blessed and so grateful for that. So perhaps there's a second chance in your life. Maybe this is the time to explore that. Now back to Lynn. So, we talk about a lot of things. We have issues in our life and so forth. Does this why program help us discovering our why? Does that help us work through some of the issues that we may have in life in some ways?
I think so.
Okay.
And it did for me, because when I really understood, knowing my why helped me understood what I was experiencing recently.
Okay.
And it didn't cause it, it just helped me to understand it at a different level. One of the things that we say at the Why Institute is that knowing your why is the first essential step to knowing yourself. And it's, there's other steps that we can take as well, but that one is really pretty simple, because it's an algorithm. And you go online and it takes you 10 minutes and you answer a bunch of questions.
Right.
And for the life of you can't figure out what these questions are,
Right.
where they came from, or how they could possibly make any sense. But I've done it both ways and it came out exactly the same.
So people have their why at this point in time. That gives them some understanding, but it really doesn't give them the full depth of what they're going to do with it, does it?
Well, it is, it's every journey starts somewhere.
Sure.
And, your why can become part of your personal brand.
Okay.
So, for me on my Facebook page, I have my why, how, and what there as a part of my introduction, because if I say I'm a coach, well, there's lots of coaches out there,
Sure.
right? But
Yeah.
what is it about me, and what's important to me, and how do I work?
Got it.
So
Got it.
that helps explain that to people.
You and I talked about this a little bit. This kind of fits in with the Gallup report, or Clifton Strengths, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
Right. So people, to really find out, perhaps they want to do the Clifton Strengths test as well. I don't know if you really call it a test or assessment.
Assessment, yes.
Assessment, right? And they could do the why assessment also, to get a better understanding of how they really see the world and how they operate in the world.
Right.
And hopefully, you folks out there, hopefully part of your why is that you want to love more people, because that's what this is all about. Right?
Lynn, I like that you can use it as your brand. That's a
Yes.
whole different take on it.
Yeah.
So Lynn did
It
mine, and mine is a better way.
Right.
Yes.
And that's truly what I'm always trying to do, is just find a clearer, better way to get things done more efficiently.
Sure. Yeah.
Right, and when you can share that with people, and they know that's what you're all about, it takes away the misunderstanding. It's like, well, why does she want to do it another way?
Well, I sure was cleaning.
So now that you discovered that, but you probably knew that about yourself, right? Did you know that about yourself, or was this just a clarification?
It just made sense to me that I try to simplify, but to me I thought I used to be a special ed teacher. So it was finding a way to integrate different needs into a more adaptable world,
Right.
which is what I do. So I just thought that was my education and my training. Maybe it is. I don't know. It's that journey that we talked about.
Okay.
But to use it
But
as
it
your
could be.
brand and to communicate with your partner, it makes sense.
Sure. Yeah.
Absolutely, and that's why it's so. When you can communicate at that level, you know where this other person's at. You know what their come from is, and you know
Yes.
that you can be consistent with them,
Well, let's do that.
and it makes a difference.
One more question for you before
Sure.
we do this last part and when we wrap up. Freddie knows his why. Has that helped you at all? I mean, it's recent. Has that helped you guys at all understand each other, or did you already have the understanding before?
It makes
this?
sense because sometimes you think they just say things to say things, or people will think we just are like that because we're on air. We're not. That's truly who we are. And I don't
Yeah.
remember what his is, but Lynn does.
Yeah.
And it makes perfect sense the way he's trying to resolve conflicts and the way he's trying to change things.
Right.
So he'll be changing things, and I'm trying to find a better way. Ultimately, we want to do the same thing. We just have different ways to go from point A to point B.
Right, right,
But at least we know that now about each other. It's clearer as to why we do what we do.
yes, and you and Freddie both have challenge in your makeup, and your which is a gives you a common platform, and Arthur, you have mastery in yours. Dawn has mastery in hers.
Uh-huh.
So that becomes a common platform,
Got it.
right? So it's really very powerful, right? Louise and I have exactly the same, the same three, and that I think supports us working together on our show.
Right. So Lynn, before we break away and I get to this last part, how do people get in touch with you about the why?
So they can send me an email to leverard@lynneverard.com, or they can call me at 954-647-3554.
Awesome. Thanks for being here today, Lynn. It's always a pleasure to see you.
Thank
You're
you.
a great human being. I love you. And so the last part, folks, I think we're going to get in on a screenshot on this in a minute. So, I talk about wisdom a lot. I have a Wisdom Cafe page as well that you may be watching this show on the Wisdom Cafe page. I posted this because talking about what is love. So is it an emotion only felt between two people, or is it a universal energy force? Well, in fact, love is everything. It is what you came from and were born into. It is a gift that we all received. So if you give money to a homeless person, that is love. To save a bee or a butterfly from harm, that is love. To smile at a stranger or give them a hand, that is love. Love is hope, gratitude, kindness, forgiveness, compassion, care, patience, empathy, peace, and joy. You are love. So please always be loving. I say this to everybody: if you want love in your life, be loving. If you want kindness in your life, be kind. If you want people to be empathetic to you, be empathetic with them. If you want people to be compassionate, be compassionate. When you are all these virtues, those virtues come back to you. Practice it as much as you can, please. And until next time, thank you for being here. Lots of love to all of you, lots of blessings. And remember, when you change the way you see things change.
You have been watching the Wisdom Cafe. Join me each Wednesday at 3 p.m. to explore what it is to be human and create that second chance, as I examine ways about how you can have more peace, love, and happiness in your life. Until next week, remember this: when you change what you do and the way you look at things, the things you look at